Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh. Dark clouds of conflict are again beginning to hover over the Middle East. Just a week after the State of Israel used its heaviest drone Iran to bomb a military installation over Isfahan, Iran has now showed off its underground fighter jets. With the backing of the Americans, the State of Israel over many decades has behaved as the nuclear policeman of the Middle East. But Iran is trying to change the status quo of the power balance in one of the most turbulent regions of the world. So what role will Iran's newly acquired arsenal of underground fighter jets, drones and missiles play? Our next report gets you the details.
This is an underground fighter jet base, unlike any that you might have seen before. Called the Eagle 44, this underground base can accommodate all types of fighter jets and bombers. And according to Iran, this top-secret facility, whose location has not been revealed, can even withstand strikes by US bunker-busting bombs. The objective of these fighter jets, according to Iran, is to thwart possible maneuvers, as were practiced by the United States and Israel in their recent military drills.
If a country or a place from surrounding countries or anywhere in the world is being used as a base to attack Iran, other than the Zionist regime which we are already prepared for, that base will come under our heavy attack.
So what reason does Iran have to prepare for a possible assault? On the 29th of January, Israel used its heaviest drone Eitan to target an Iranian military facility in Isfahan. And just days before that, the United States and Israel conducted the Juniper Oak 23, the biggest ever joint military drills in Israel and the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. The Pentagon stated that the drills involved US and Israeli fifth-generation fighter assets, including 140 aircraft, 6,400 US troops, along with 1,500 Israeli troops. In July and August 2022, Israel repeatedly violated Iranian airspace using its F-35 fighter jets, simulating a possible strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. In September 2022, the Israeli Air Force has shared this tweet. The incident dates back exactly 16 years. On the 5th of September in 2007, the Israeli F-15 and F-16 fighter jets had swooped down in the dead of the night on Syria's Deir ez-Zor and bombed a cube-like structure that was tucked away in a desert valley. The operation was called Out of the Box, or Operation Orchard, and according to reports, the Israeli airstrike destroyed a nuclear reactor that was just months away from completion. 41 years ago, on the 7th of June in 1981, Israeli fighter jets bombed an unfinished Iraqi nuclear reactor, 17 kilometers outside of the Iraqi capital. Codenamed variously as Operation Babylon or Operation Opera. So, Iran has good reason to be wary of Israeli designs. At the moment, there are a minimum of 6 nuclear facilities in Iran. At Natanz and Fordo, centrifuges have been moved deep under the ground in a complex maze of tunnels. It is to target these facilities that Israel seems to be preparing for. But an attack on Iran won't be a cakewalk. The underground fighter jets that Iran presently has may lack the teeth, but Tehran is expecting a delivery of 24 Sukhoi Su-35 fighter jets from the 21st of March. And if this deal does materialize, then the balance of air power will shift in the Middle East. Besides this, Iran has also built up a formidable arsenal of top-notch drones that have been used by the Russians in the Ukraine war.
Our enemies, who usually have wrong intelligence, should sometimes see what we are capable of. This will help maintain peace in the world and the region.
Israel is the only country in the Middle East that has nuclear weapons. For its part, Iran insists that its nuclear program is meant only for peaceful generation of electricity. But Israel has never made a secret of its distrust of Iran's nuclear program. The acquisition of a nuclear weapon by Tehran will change the power dynamics in the Middle East. And Tel Aviv appears to be on the cusp of another major operation to strike at Iran's nuclear capabilities.
North Korea has crossed a crucial nuclear threshold. For the very first time, Pyongyang has paraded its biggest number of nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles, which analysts say would be enough to overwhelm America's air defenses along the west coast. Now, all of through last year, President Biden had adopted a policy of using only sanctions to engage with Pyongyang, as it had carried a spree of missile tests and had cemented its position as a nuclear power. But now, Kim Jong-un has asked his military to strengthen its war preparedness. But who does North Korea think it would get into a conflict with? And what does it mean for the region at large? Our next report gets you the details.
In a nighttime parade, Pyongyang has just exhibited its biggest array of nuclear weapons, including tactical nuclear devices, intercontinental ballistic missiles, among other weapon systems. The North Korean state media described its nuclear arsenal as powerful enough to match against North Korea's adversaries, nuke for a nuke. The parade, organized to mark the 75th anniversary of North Korea's army, was presided by Kim Jong-un, accompanied by his wife and young daughter. And underlining the event was North Korea's message that its status as a nuclear power is irrevocable.
They are going to prioritize developing the ICBM and then the SLBM to guarantee the North Korean regime, which can be a practical threat to the US mainland. That's why they showed that they are producing Hwasong 17 to put pressure.
The highlight of the night's parade were the 11 Hwasong 17 intercontinental ballistic missiles. First tested in 2022, Pyongyang calls them the monster missiles. With an estimated range of 15,000 kilometers, these ICBMs, which are 26 meters tall, can strike mainland United States. They are nuclear capable and can carry a warhead that can weigh as much as 3,500 kilograms. But what has caught the most attention is a prototype of solid fuel ICBMs in canister launchers. Tensions on the Korean peninsula have been at a boiling point for more than a year now. In 2022, Pyongyang tested more than 90 ballistic, cruise and hypersonic missiles. While the United States and South Korea have conducted repeated military drills, which Pyongyang has slammed as provocation. On the 1st of February, the US Air Force flew its B-1B strategic bomber, along with F-22 and F-35B stealth fighter planes. North Korea dubs these military drills as a rehearsal for a possible invasion. But for the common people, the build-up of these deadly weapons on the Korean peninsula points to a looming tragedy.
As a South Korean, I just cannot tolerate the fact that North Korea, despite being one race and people, tested missiles and aggravated confrontation between the two Koreas when we are in a period of mourning for the Taiwan tragedy.
The last time North Korea had tested a nuclear weapon was in 2017. The explosion at the Punggye-ri site had resulted in a yield of about 370 kilotons. But subsequently in 2018, North Korea had shut down its Punggye-ri testing site by blowing it up in the presence of some foreign journalists. The high-profile summits which Kim Jong-un had held with Donald Trump aren't forthcoming under Joe Biden. Instead, the American policy has been all about sanctions and silence, while Pyongyang has gone on an exhibitionist mode with missile test after missile test and nuclear parade after nuclear parade.
The spring offensive by the Russians will target certain key strategic cities of Ukraine. After securing the promise of heavy Western tanks, President Volodymyr Zelensky is now lobbying hard in European capitals for top-notch Western fighter jets. The possibility of an uncontrolled escalation hasn't been ruled out, and Western military analysts are now speculating on the number of lives that would be snuffed out in case of the use of nuclear weapons. The doomsday clock is beginning to tick closer to midnight, and our next report explores as to what it would mean if Ukraine were to get fighter jets from its Western allies.
The spring offensive in the Ukraine war will be more deadlier than anything that we've ever witnessed so far. On the 10th of February, Russia fired 71 cruise missiles targeting Ukraine's infrastructure, resulting in a power outage for millions across Ukraine. Analysts expect Russia to target certain strategic regions in the next few weeks. Moscow's offensive on Kupiansk, Liman, Avdiivka and Vuhledar is already in full swing. Ukrainian families who are bracing for the onslaught are fleeing from the frontline villages.
The kids were learning online. They did not attend the village school in person. Anyway, they need special needs schools. They attended one in Liman, school number 34.
Things are not good. I am fed up. Going there and back with children? Not good.
Students in Kyiv are sitting through their classes in underground metro stations. These classrooms also double up as bomb shelters every time the air siren goes off.
It is not quite comfortable for the children, but for such a long time, since September, the alarms were frequent and the children got used to such work. If there is a choice between having and not having a test, the children take the test and keep working. We study math, biology, chemistry, all the school subjects that we have in our schedule.
Russia's Admiral Gorshkov, that is armed with the deadly Zircon missiles, has sailed through the Atlantic Ocean. It is slated to join the joint military drills with China and South Africa later this month. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who hopped through the European capitals this week, lobbying for Western fighter jets, is hopeful that his wish could be granted soon.
The visit to London was effective. We got closer to the decision about long-range weapons and the training of our pilots. This is really some step to providing Ukraine with fighter jets which we need. There are certain agreements which are not public, but which are positive. When it gets to our country will know about it. I don't want to prepare the Russian Federation, which is constantly threatening us with new aggressions and with a vengeful mood on the battlefield.
But Russia has slammed this possibility, stating that it would be the Ukrainians who would suffer if they used NATO fighter jets in the war. Meanwhile, the doomsday clock has started to tick dangerously close to midnight. With every passing week, what has been witnessed is a dangerous escalation in the fighting in Ukraine. And no one at this moment can predict how this grueling war in Ukraine will end.
The West African nation of Mali is bracing itself for a renewed push against the Islamist insurgents. And to this end, Bamako has now purchased some top-notch Russian fighter jets. At the Modibo Keita International Airport, the Malian junta, which grabbed power in May 2021, received at least about 8 planes and 2 helicopters. But experts say that the increased reliance on Russian weapons and Russian mercenaries has hardly made an impact on the ground. Our next report gets you the details.
Mali has never officially confirmed this, but for more than a year, Russia's Wagner mercenaries have been active in the Sahel region, battling the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists besides the Islamic State in Greater Sahara. In a grand ceremony attended by the Russian ambassador, the Malian army took possession of Russian warplanes, which will be used against the Islamist insurgents and bandits who have wreaked havoc in Mali.
The desire to modernize and equip our army is not only linked to the security crisis. Of course, this crisis has shown the urgency of it, but above all, it responds to a fundamental need, without which no undertaking initiated by Mali can claim success. Ensuring the security of its population is not a luxury, but a necessity.
Since 2012, the Sahel part of Mali has witnessed one attack after another. The year 2022 has been one of the bloodiest years in over a decade. On the 3rd of June 2022, 33 civilians were killed by the use of improvised explosive devices that were planted on roadways. On the 8th of August, 50 ethnic Songhai were massacred in an attack on several villages. On the 3rd of December, 31 traders in a bus were killed in a mass firing incident near the Bandiagara market. The number of internally displaced has been conservatively pegged at over 385,000. For more than a decade, France, a former colonial power in the region, had been helping Mali fight the Islamists. But France's inability to crush the insurgent violence meant that the French forces were no longer welcome in the country. And Russia, with its growing geopolitical clout, has been only too happy to fill the void.
The fight against terrorism is of course an issue for the other countries in the region. We are going to provide our assistance to them to overcome these difficulties. This concerns Guinea, Burkina Faso, Chad and the Sahel region generally, and even the coastal states of the Gulf of Guinea.
According to the United Nations, the Malian authorities are in complete control of just 15% of the country. What is unfolding in Mali at the moment has been described as a contest between an army and a clandestine army. For more than a decade, Mali has been the epicenter of Islamist violence in the Sahel region, which has since spilled over into neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger. Oftentimes, the civilians killed by the Malian forces belong to the Fulani ethnic group, which Bamako regards as the key social base from which the Islamists recruit their fighters. So will the attack fighter jets from Russia help the Malian junta to crack down more efficiently on the insurgency? Not even the worst affected communities in Mali are hoping that things would change for the better. Bureau Report, WION.
El Salvador has just unveiled the biggest prison in Latin America. A country that has been at war with criminal gangs is now upping the ante. An estimated 100,000 people in El Salvador are already behind bars. For context, this is almost about 2% of the total El Salvadoran population. But how far has this iron fist policy of tackling criminal gang violence succeeded in the Central American nation? Our next report gets you the details.
El Salvador has some of the most deadly criminal gangs in the world. From the 1980s, the Barrio 18 and the MS-13, the two most dreaded criminal gangs have dominated the streets of El Salvador. And now the 41-year-old president, Nayib Bukele, wants to lock up every single criminal gang member. In the biggest prison facility that he has just constructed. With a capacity to hold 40,000 prisoners, the Terrorism Confinement Center is built in an expansive 23-hectare complex. The prison has been designed to hold gang leaders. Prisoners will have no contact with the outside world, and they will be escorted out only to appear for a hearing in the court.
We are going to guarantee that all these people who for decades have caused harm and murdered Salvadoran families will be in a place where they will not be able to leave. Every single cell has been built according to international standards. The entire prison has been built in compliance with international standards and guarantees security.
With 7 guard towers, the possibility of a jailbreak is almost impossible. The closest human habitation is about 74 kilometers away. In 2015, El Salvador surpassed Honduras as the most violent country in the world, with a murder rate of more than 100 for every 100,000 inhabitants. But ever since the state of exception was imposed in March 2022, after a spate of murders by the criminal gangs, the police and the army have gone on overdrive, rounding up suspected gang members and their collaborators. Some constitutional rights have been suspended. Arrests have been made without warrants, resulting in El Salvador having the highest incarceration rate in the world. But President Nayib Bukele insists that things have improved.
There was a murder rate here of 73 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. The murder rate in 2022 was just 3 homicides per 100,000 inhabitants. Last year, the murder rate in Soyapango was similar to the murder rate in Canada. Youth in Soyapango now have the freedom to be what they want to be. They are free to be artists or athletes, to go to school or get a job, to play and have fun, to go out and live in their community, to go to the sports fields and into public spaces. And now also to come here, to this cubo that has books, PlayStations, computers, and internet.
At the moment, Nayib Bukele seems to have the solid backing of his people, with an 86% approval rating, making him the most popular leader in Latin America. But questions have been raised about human rights violations, about the sustainability of the mano dura, or the iron fist anti-criminal gang policy, which the Human Rights Watch has slammed, has been used as a license to arrest people from some of the most vulnerable sections of the society. Besides this, Human Rights Watch has also raised some inconvenient questions about enforced disappearances, torture, ill treatment of detainees, and custodial deaths. But Nayib Bukele's government has rubbished these allegations, citing a downward trend in the exodus of people who were fleeing the endemic violence. Nayib Bukele's government insists that the only way to make people feel safe in El Salvador is by keeping the criminal gangs behind bars.
Thanks for watching World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, you can do so by tweeting to me on the Twitter handle that you see on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and we'll meet again next week.